Hi everyone! Today's video I'm going to be discussing something that has been a big part of my life for a very long time. So I've been ill for 5-6 years now, and I've had big diagnoses coming my way, I'd say for the past 3 of those, and particularly the last year and a half has been some of the trickiest of my life because I just felt really alone, and that there are so many other people with the conditions that I'm diagnosed with, but when it comes down to it, objectively you can see that there's a lot of people around you supporting you, but subjectively when you're living that, it just, you feel like no one could ever understand that. So a while ago I wrote an article for St Mary's Hospice, which is the hospice I use for respite, and I thought I would read it to you because it's still it's a process I'm going through now. Grief isn't something that leaves you, and I still think about what I would be doing now hadn't I been ill. Allowing yourself to grieve after being diagnosed. For the past year, I've been grieving myself. My continued decline in health is still a shock, and in my case, I develop more complications over time. I have been looking into the gaping abyss of grief. This grief is made up of numerous smaller losses, of independence, dignity, simplicity, a painless existence, and hope. It is a strange feeling. There is no place, no memorial to go to while you're grieving yourself. No one can understand the weight and the darkness of that grief, when you're the only one who's consumed by it, because you're the one that is experiencing the first-hand effects of illness. All of these feelings are not helped by the taboo surrounding death and dying. It is a regular occurrence that those who mourn themselves aren't allowed to discuss their wishes, hopes and fears with family due to heightened fear around these conversations. Having talked to others, I think this is because discussing death is like accepting or allowing that thing to happen, rather than death being seen as something inevitable, whether you plan for it or not. This can lead to people having miscommunications around how they want to die, or mean families make decisions that their loved ones wouldn't want had relatives had the discussion beforehand. For the sick, the lack of communication means that we are left to fear alone in our own mind. I've been through the 7 stages of grief surrounding my illness. It started with shock. I remember coming out of the appointment in which I was diagnosed happy and relieved that I finally had an answer, but the next day I felt absolutely shocked, unable to say much. The appointment felt like something I had watched on TV, not experienced firsthand. I felt like it was all happening to someone else. Later, I moved on to denial. In this phase, I returned to school to complete my A-levels. It was what all my friends had done whilst I had spent 6 months in hospital, so I felt that it was something I should do. It was not a good move from a health point of view. I became extremely ill and crashed out of education, having gained 1 A-level. Then I moved on to anger. I wrote in my diary every day for a year, questioning why it was me who was having to suffer. It took me a long time to accept that situations like mine can and do happen all over the world, and many people do not have access to excellent healthcare and die much younger than I will. I've also been through the bargaining stage of grief. The feeling that there must be a way to get out of this cycle of pain and suffering, that doctors had missed something. I even prayed to a God, which I didn't believe in. Next, I have experienced a long stage of depression. It is normal to compare your previous life with your current one. It is okay to languish in that for a while, but when it affects the quality of your life now, you must seek help. The next stage, testing, is the stage of trying to find realistic solutions to your feelings of depression. This meant trying to manage my ill health now, while enjoying some pleasures of my previous life. Things like going out with friends in the morning, but resting all afternoon mean I can have both of these things and manage my health. It has been about compromise, which was a tricky thing to manage at first. I view compromise as a split in the middle of my healthy and ill selves. One wants to see friends, the other is exhausted. In order to have some time as my old self, I must keep in mind the new medical complications of the act. Finally, acceptance. Personally, acceptance is a tricky one. I fully understand and accept my illnesses, but I struggle to accept my new limitations. The ramifications have been so much more than only physical. They have been social and emotional also. Finally, acceptance. We're all ill-prepared by a society that doesn't want a conversation around both chronic and terminal illness. Many go through life believing that medicine or an operation can cure almost any ill, when there are actually many illnesses that can harm you. Every human on earth has two things in common. One, that they are born, and another, that we die. One huge component in my grieving has been the creation of a living will, a medical security blanket, if you will. I know that if I am unable to make choices about my medical treatment, I won't have any treatment I didn't consent to. For me, grieving is cyclical. As things get worse, I go through these stages over and over and over again. And that's okay. That is expected and that is normal. We should be allowed to grieve ourselves. Thanks so much for sitting and listening to that. If you'd like to learn more or hear more, you can always subscribe to my channel and give it a quick thumbs up if you found it useful. I've linked the original article down below so that you can read it or print it out if you want to. Bye!